Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Priya, I live in New York, and I love to knit. This is the 4th episode of my knitting podcast. Today is April 13th, so it's been about 6 weeks since I last filmed, and I have a lot to catch up on. I have 3 finished objects today. I don't even know how many whips, like a lot of whips, and the majority of them are new to this podcast. And actually one acquisition that I'm really excited to share with you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first finished object I'd like to talk about, I guess maybe I should talk about what I'm wearing first, which is one of my finished objects. This is the Amy sweater by Petite Knit. Which is a nice raglan sweater with a rollover turtleneck and these like curled up edges. I will apologize for the amount of cat fur that is on my sweater. My cat loves to sleep on my sweaters, especially a new sweater. She just, as soon as I finish it, she's like, this is mine now. So it's clearly been well loved by her. So yeah, this is a pattern by Petite Knit. I knit this using Blue Sky Fibers woolstock worsted in the colorway dark chocolate. I guess I'll talk about the yarn first and then I'll talk about the pattern. So funnily enough, I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I lived there when I first started knitting in like 2021-ish. And I bought this yarn at Looped in DuPont Circle. And I've had it since then. And I'm thrilled that I've gotten to knit it up into something. I also use the same yarn to knit an Esther beanie by Rose Knitwear that I showed in maybe my second knitting podcast episode. But I really love this yarn. I've talked about it a lot on my channel already, and it's just I have nothing but good things to say about it. The stitch definition is amazing. This color is amazing. It's so soft and so pleasant to work with. I did show maybe my last knitting podcast episode. It is kind of like a 2-ply yarn and it's twisted on itself, so I wasn't sure how I would like that because I don't know, I just didn't really like the look of the plies for some reason in the yarn itself, but when it knits up it looks super nice. Again, I am so sorry. I hope it's like not super gross to see like cat fur here and there. It's just what happens when I wear anything dark. I'm also wearing black jeans and I have like fuzz and fur all over them. But yeah, I think this color is really beautiful. I know chocolate brown has been really popular this season, and I'm glad that I've had this yarn in my stash so I was able to hop on the trend without having to buy anything new. And yeah, I think it blocked out beautifully. It was knit on 4mm needles, which is the recommended size for this pattern. I think this pattern is originally knit in sandnes garn pure gynt, which is a lot like more plumper of a yarn, I would say, a lot rounder and plumper of a yarn than this one is. It's actually funny, this yarn is called woolstock worsted, but I feel like it's a very lightweight yarn, and maybe it's the plies. I don't really know much about spinning in plies, so it's possible that it feels so lightweight because of the way that it's plied. But I think that's all I have to say about the yarn. I definitely will use it again if I ever need it for a project in the future. And going on to the pattern, so the Amy sweater is a raglan pattern, a raglan style sweater that is knit in a very different way than your typical raglan. you start out knitting the back flat, and after you knit some of it, you add on the front panels and continue the raglan increases in the front and the back. I think it's a really interesting way to add shaping to the raglan sweater without having German short rows. And I think it's something that I would definitely knit again. I like the fit of it. One thing about this though is that like this turtleneck, I'm not sure if it's supposed to sit this way, but that's just how it's sitting for me. I will say that while I was knitting it, I got kind of tired of doing all the raglan increases. It's not like a super low yoke, but you can see that there is this extra fabric here between like my armpit and I guess the end of the sweater. I don't really mind the extra space in the yoke. I think it's a very comfortable fitting raglan, and like I mentioned before, I would definitely be interested in knitting more raglans in the future that have this kind of construction where you start on the back and then you cast on more stitches for the front. One thing I really like about this pattern is the 2x2 rib details on the turtleneck, the cuffs, and the hem. I'm sorry for my jeans, but yeah. And it has this kind of rolled detail where you do a few rounds of stockinette so that it rolls up and shows off the purl ridges from the other side of the knitting. And then there's also this really cool, like when you pick up to do the ribbing for the turtleneck, you do one round of purl stitches to have this like nice detail where the join is. When I was knitting this, I completely didn't do the purl stitches, and I looked back on it and realized I didn't do them, and I was like, is it even worth unraveling what I've done so far and doing it again? When I looked at Petite Knit's sample, I determined that I really did like the look of this, so I went back and added in the purl stitches, and I'm glad I did. I think it just like, I don't know, it adds like a kind of continuity between the purl stitches over here and then over here. So I really enjoy it. I would recommend this knitting pattern for anyone who wants to do it. I do really love the matcha version that Petite Knit has. I don't think I'm going to knit it again. I don't think there's any reason to have more than one of these sweaters in my wardrobe, but I do really enjoy how I learned a lot of new techniques and a lot of new construction ideas from this pattern. And yeah, it was I wouldn't say it was a fun necessarily pattern to knit, because after a while I was just like, okay, I'm tired of this, but I'm very happy with the finished product. I've been wearing this a lot. I wore this yesterday. I'm wearing it again for this video and very happy with it. Moving on to my next finished object. I finished this sweater about a month ago. This is another Petite Knit pattern. This is the Esther sweater by Petite Knit. I knit this using one strand of pure gynt by Sandnes garn in the color marzipan tutti frutti tweed, and one strand of knitting for olive soft silk mohair in the colorway oat. Here's a close-up of what my fabric looks like. I think the oat and the marzipan colorways are a really good match for each other. I just happen to have them both in my stash and they worked up beautifully. I really love pure gynt. It is not for everyone perhaps, but I think it's a fabulous fabric that it knits up, and I know that this is going to be a very long-lasting sweater in my wardrobe and beyond that perhaps. So going into the pattern, like I said, this is the Esther sweater by Petite Knit. It is a textured sweater, and all the texture is made up by knits and pearls. And this is the front of it, and it's pretty much the same on the back. The sleeves have the diamond motif continuing down the length of the sleeve. I found this pattern really simple to knit. It was a little bit tedious, but the design itself was pretty simple. I had the chart pretty much memorized after a few repeats, so I didn't find it to be tedious in that way. It was just tedious in that it took so long to get done. I noted this in my last podcast episode, but something that I noticed was that my row gauge must have been quite a bit off of Petite Knit's row gauge, because I have a lot more of these diamond repeats than she does in her sample. I think she knit this in an isager yarn. I think she used isager Jensen and their mohair. So that's perhaps why. Maybe I should have swatched before this. I think I did swatch before this, but I was like, I know that this is the same gauge as this pattern, so I'm not really gonna swatch like that hard. Anyway, I think this is marked as one of the more difficult petite knit patterns, but I think that has more to do with how long it takes to do this rather than the actual difficulty of the sweater construction itself. It is a drop-down sweater. One thing I do want to talk about is, so when you're shaping the back, you have this continuous, these knit stitches that you pick up on, like, for the front panels, and it creates this line, and ideally the line would continue down the sleeve like it does for the sleeve, but Petite Knit doesn't note that when you're picking up the stitches for the sleeves, so unless you're doing the math yourself, you're not going to know how to pick up the sleeves so that the line goes down. Which is what happened for this sleeve. You can see it's disjointed here. This was actually the first sleeve that I knit, and I saw it work up like this, and I was like, okay, whatever, like it's just not going to be perfect. It's a hand knit sweater, that's just how it goes. And then I knit this one and it just so happened to match up perfectly, and I was just like, I don't really feel like unraveling this whole sleeve and re-knitting it just to have this line match up. And truthfully, when I have it on my body, it's not that noticeable, at least for me as someone who is like only looking myself in the mirror in the back. That is one thing to note. If you are interested in having that kind of design motif, I think it is a really nice design if it happens to work up like this. It's very intentional, but I messed up on this sleeve. So if it really bothers me, I can always in the future unravel it and re-knit it, but there's no way I'm doing that anytime soon. Other than that, I didn't really have any issues with the pattern itself. I really enjoyed it, but like I said, with this sweater, I don't see the point in having more than one of these in my wardrobe. I would be interested in perhaps knitting like the men's version for my dad or my boyfriend or my brother-in-law one day. I think it's a really cute, very interesting pattern. I don't really see anything like this in store-bought clothing, so it's a super unique piece, and I think the rainbow tweed adds something special to it. I don't think this is my color. That, like, to talk about the yarn, I really don't think that this marzipan color does anything for me, but it is what it is. It's a nice neutral sweater. Not everything needs to be in my color season. I don't even know what my color season is, to be honest, because I feel there are very few resources out there for people without light skin tones. So that's a little bit of a tangent. But another thing about this is that the tweed is just very, I mean, maybe this because this is a textured pattern, but the tweed is very diffused, if you ask me. I think compared to yarns like the isager tweed, which, hey, can you not bite my yarn, please? I think compared to other tweed yarns, this is not like as tweedy as I would like it to be. But again, that could be because I'm knitting it in a textured pattern, and I'd be interested to see how this kind of yarn knits up in stockinette. Given that I'm not a fan of how this color looks on my skin tone, I probably won't use it again, but I think this is a great sweater. And my next and final finished object is a pair of vanilla socks. I knit these using Patons Kroy. I think the color might just be gray marl, but as usual, I'll include all information in the description box of this video. I knit these for my dad, and so I knit these to fit about a men's US size 9.5 shoe. The Patons Kroy is a bit thicker than a fingering weight yarn. I guess like one would, maybe it's more of a sport weight. I don't know much about yarn weights and how to determine that, but I knit these on a 2.75 millimeter needle and cast on 64 stitches and knit this, and it definitely, like, it's still very wet. I just finished these yesterday, so they're still in the process of blocking on these sock blockers, but I think if the yarn already feels much softer like now than it did before. I've read online that a few people have complained about the experience of knitting with this yarn because it is a little bit rough. I personally didn't mind it for the most part. I think it did get kind of rough, like tensioning it on my finger. Just had to be sure to moisturize every once in a while. But I took this as a travel project when I was going to visit a friend who lives in Ohio. Started and finished the first sock on that trip, and then it took me a while to finish this other sock. That trip was about like 3 weeks ago. So I finally just finished the pair yesterday. I'm really excited to give this to my dad when I see him in a little bit over a week. He mentioned that his feet have been cold, so I think a nice pair of wool socks will help with that. And I really do like this yarn. I bought a few more skeins of it, which is a part of my acquisitions. I'm planning on knitting my boyfriend a pair because he is the same size as my dad, so I already know to use 64 stitches. If you have been watching my podcast episodes for a while, I was in the process of knitting my boyfriend a pair of socks just for like a holiday gift. I mean, it's April now, so that's long gone, but I brought those socks as a travel project when I went to Mexico with my boyfriend, and I left my backpack in Mexico and I haven't gotten it back. So those socks are still in Mexico and I have not been able to continue them. So I would really like to cast on another pair of these socks with this yarn. And because this yarn is slightly thicker than a fingering weight and it's knit up on a 2.75 millimeter needle, I think it will go by a lot faster than a regular fingering weight sock project. I don't think there's much else to say about this project. It's just a regular vanilla sock, 64 stitches, like I said, with the slip stitch heel flap and gusset construction, because this is the only construction that I know, and it's my tried and true construction. Oh my gosh. Do you see this? Okay, I've distracted my cat with some treats, so hopefully she is satisfied with that and won't be chewing on my yarn anymore. Next whip that I'd like to talk about is one that I mentioned on this podcast already, and it is the Lakes pullover by Ozetta. And now that I'm looking at it on camera, it looks so like tiny, I think this head hole is so tiny, but it's stretchy, so don't worry about it. This is a saddle shoulder construction pullover sweater. Here are the saddle pieces right here. This looks a mess because I'm knitting this in a dark blue, and we know what happens with dark yarns in this household. I am having a good time knitting the sweater. I'm a little worried about playing yarn chicken, which I guess I'll talk about now. So the yarns I'm using are one strand of Quince & Co. Crane in the colorway El Paso, and one strand of Isager Alpaca 1 in navy. So you can see that these colors are a little bit different. I feel like this one's a little more like muted perhaps, but knit up together, I feel like it's made a really, really nice fabric. And this is my first time using a lace weight alpaca, and I'm actually enjoying it so far. We'll see how I enjoy wearing it because I do tend to be a little bit sensitive to alpaca, but so far it's been great. I believe this yarn is 50% merino, 50% mohair, and the reason why I'm worried about losing yarn chicken is because I don't think I can buy this yarn anymore. Like, it's not available anywhere. It comes in 100-gram skeins, and I believe I had about 5. This is my 3rd one. So this is where I've gotten with like 2.5 skeins so far. And I have 2 more skeins left. So I think I finished the folded over collar last night, which is honestly really hard to do in this color. I had to like pick up stitches and cast off, and I like could not see what I was doing, but I think it worked out. Ozetta also has instructions for doing a stretchy bind off, which is really nice because I have had issues before with folded over collars not being able to fit over my head because they weren't stretchy enough. So one thing I did to curb my yarn consumption for this project was that I knitted this folded over neckline a little bit shorter than what's stated in the pattern. I don't know if that's really going to affect much, but this is a little bit shorter than what was written in the pattern. I think now that I finished that, I think I'm going to go into the sleeves next because I'd rather have my sleeves be full length and the body be a little bit cropped than the other way around. Hopefully I won't lose yarn chicken. I think I'm really bad at gauging it because the times where I've been afraid about losing yarn chicken, I've been completely fine. So I'm really hoping because I cannot repurchase this yarn, at least not in this colorway. It's just not available anywhere online. But I think this is a really beautiful, beautiful color. In the dark, it looks like it's just black, but clearly it's like navy. I am really excited to have this finished object, but I think that by the time I finish it, it's going to be too warm to wear a sweater made out of merino wool, mohair, and alpaca. So this will be something that I will get a lot of wear out this fall and winter, perhaps. I have talked in the past about putting things on ice. I have put things on ice before, but I've talked in the past about specifically perhaps putting this project on ice when it gets warm out. I think I'm still okay with continuing on with this pattern at the present moment. So we'll see. Maybe next podcast episode in another like 5 or 6 weeks, I'm gonna be like, I'm so tired of this if I haven't finished it. So a little bit about the construction of this sweater. This is a saddle shoulder sweater, like I mentioned before. You start out knitting these panels for the saddles. They're just rectangular panels that you knit this way, and then what you do is you pick up alongside one side of each of the panels, and you shape the back using German short rows. And when you pick up for the front, you also shape using German short rows and some increases. So I think that this design is very thoughtful and intentional. I think it's going to fit me great, assuming it does fit me, which I think it does. Maybe I should try it on or block it or something, but I'm kind of lazy. Like, I think I'm putting in a lot of effort into my knitwear already. Do I really need to put in the extra effort? Some might say yes. But if it doesn't fit me, I can always unravel it and start again, or gift this to someone who it will fit. My next whip, actually all my next whips are new to this podcast, so I apologize in advance if you're like, what is going on? The next thing I want to talk about is actually another ozetta pattern, and this is my Sadie sweater. So the backstory behind this is that I have this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous mohair from Malabrigo, and I've had this in my stash for a while, and I really wanted to knit a mohair like blouse or light sweater out of it. I wasn't interested in pairing it with another yarn because it's just such a, I think it like needed to shine on its own. And I was interested in maybe doing something similar to the cloud blouse by Petite Knit, but I've just finished 2 Petite Knit sweaters and I was interested in trying something out by another designer. So I posted on my Instagram story asking people if they knew anything similar that would use 2 strands of mohair, and Tar from Tar Knits responded suggesting the Sadie sweater, which she had previously test knit for Ozetta. This is a DK weight sweater pattern, knit using 4mm needles, which I'm using right now. Back panel, oh my gosh, you can really see the differences in the yarn. Oh God. But the back panel is shaped using German short rows, and then you pick up for the front pieces, and at this point I've joined in the round. You can probably see right here that there is a big color difference between the first skein that I had used for my back and then the skein that I'm currently using for my front and joining in the round. So Malabrigo is a hand-dyed yarn. This is a hand-dyed mohair. You can see that there is some variation in the skein itself. It has these really beautiful pinks all over it. When I was knitting this and I realized that the colors would be different, I was just like, I don't feel like doing helical knitting. I know it's not that hard to do, but I just thought like the color difference wouldn't bother me as much. And I think in fact it would kind of, I mean, depending on how the other skeins look knit up, I think it'll add some kind of a nice like color blocking kind of effect to it. Honestly, maybe not even nice, maybe it'll just look bad. I don't really care that much about the color difference, so I think it's fine. And the options are either I have a lot of color differences, you know, like when I do the collar, then that's going to be a completely different shade of pink, and then when I do the sleeves, that'll be a completely different shade of pink, or it'll just be that this back panel is a lot lighter than the rest of it, and I think either one of those options sounds fine with me. So I'm just kind of going with the flow with this yarn. I think that's the beauty of hand-dyed yarn in a way, that it just kind of, you never know what it's gonna look like until it's knit up, and it's like a little bit of a journey. So that's one thing that might bother some people about this sweater, but I don't mind it, and I think it's a really beautiful color for the spring. I've talked before about how I'm loving the color pink right now, so obviously I was very excited to cast on a pink project. And I forgot to say the colorway of this yarn. So this is the Malabrigo mohair. in the colorway English Rose. Here is it up close. You can see that the silk core didn't really pick up the dye a lot, so it's like a very luminous yarn. I think it's very beautiful, and again, it just adds the charm of it being a hand-dyed yarn. I am holding it double-stranded for the sweater, and I won't say that this is the softest mohair that I've ever used, but I definitely don't find it to be irritating on my skin at all whenever I'm like knitting with it. I do find that I am the most sensitive in my neck, like my lower neck and my upper back area, so we'll see how I feel when I've completed this and I'm wearing it. But so far I haven't found it to be irritating at all. Like if I'm rubbing it on the inside of my arm, I'm completely fine. On my neck, I'm completely fine. It is a little, like you can feel it's there. It's not like you're not wearing anything, but it's mohair, you know? So this is also, I'm pretty sure this is only my second skein, and this is how far I've gotten. I have, I think 4 more skeins of this yarn, 4 or 5, so I think I'm definitely going to not have any issues completing this, and might even have some left over for another project. And yeah, I think that this is a pretty pricey mohair, I'd say, because it is hand dyed, but I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're not super sensitive to mohairs. And it comes in a million beautiful colorways, including this one, and this is just like the most gorgeous pink ever. So yeah. So my next whip, I actually have a lot of it done, and that's because I started knitting this last year and I picked it up to continue knitting it this year. And actually, I've already knit this once, I think in May of 2023 or 2022. Maybe it was 2023 actually, but I knit this entire top and realized it was too small for me. So I unraveled it, and now I'm knitting it again 2 years later. And I am hoping this fits me. This is the Sandnes garn Cornelia Tea. And I am using Lena in the spicy orange colorway. This pattern is in one of Sandnes Garn's booklets, but I bought the entire kit off of Mother Knitter. So that entails buying the pattern as well as the yarn that comes with the pattern. And I believe, unless they've changed it, I believe that I was able to purchase the shirt and the skirt together in one pattern. So this is like a 2-piece set with a matching skirt with this top. I probably will insert a picture somewhere here as I'm talking about it. I bought the kit for both the shirt and the skirt. I actually started knitting this in the size extra small, like when I first knit this 2 years ago, because that was my bust circumference measurement. And then as I was knitting it, my mom was like, that's not gonna fit you. And I was like, you're right. So I went up to the small, and which was not hard to do because I think the small and the extra small had the same number of stitches, but the small was longer. So I don't know, in my mind I was like, yeah, it makes, like, that's gonna fit me better, but like that made no difference in it, and it just was like way too tight on me. It did not look like how it looked on the model. So I am now knitting the size medium. This looks like a good size to me. It looks like a nice comfortable fit. The skirt I actually started as well. I started knitting that size small. Who knows if I'm going to have to re-knit that again, because I have a lot going on right now, and I'd rather just focus on getting this shirt done before I move on to the skirt. But this is a t-shirt, a short sleeve t-shirt with these really, really nice eyelet details and this 2x2 rib on the hem and the collar and the sleeve cuffs as well when I get to that. The collar is a folded over 2x2 rib collar. I am currently working on doing the rest of it that will be folded over. I'll honestly probably use the same technique that I used for the Lakes pullover in doing the stretchy bind off, because I think that'll help a lot with my head being able to fit inside this t-shirt. And then once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go with the sleeves. I'm pretty sure the sleeves, if I remember correctly, they will do, they're knit using short row shaping to do the sleeve cap, and then the cuff. It's a little bit of a puff sleeve kind of look. And oh, one thing I wanted to talk about was this pattern had a really interesting method of using German short rows to shape the back. I'm used to doing German short rows to shape like a slope in the back, but this pattern had to use German short rows to do like this kind of like up and down, like two hills kind of shape in the back, which was really interesting. It does make it a little bit like bumpy here, but I think that'll be blocked out nicely, especially with this plant-based yarn. I think it'll like stretch and relax quite a bit. So that was really interesting. I think I need to look into it more to see if I like the fit of this method and whether or not I'll use it again on something. I did make a big mistake over here on the left side of the panel. I don't know if I can show this really well because it's curling up, but basically I just didn't do the lace correctly. I think I had, you see like these two eyelets. I think at the very start I didn't space them out correctly, so I did make a mistake there, and I realized it when I had joined in the round. I was like, there is no way that I'm knitting this for a third time, and I don't think it's super noticeable, so I think it's fine. I am really looking forward to having this and a matching skirt. It's gonna come 2 years late, but it's going to still look gorgeous no matter what. One thing about me, which this might be a hot take, but I love spring and summer knitting. Like, I love warm weather knitting. I love this yarn so much. I am going to talk about the same yarn in a little bit, but I love Sandnes garn Lena. It is so good. It comes in a million colors. It is just so like cooling to the touch. I mean, Lena I think is like a worsted weight yarn, so this is a little bit like thick. I'm knitting it on 3mm needles, by the way. This is 2.5 for the neckline, but this is knit on 3mm needles. But it also comes in a fingering weight version, which I'll talk about in a second. It comes in so many beautiful colors. It's just so cooling to the touch. It's so lightweight. It is machine washable, which is amazing. So I love this yarn so much. I'm going to be using it a lot this summer, so apologies in advance for not being interesting with my yarn choices, but it's one of my favorite yarns. It's so good. I would definitely recommend it if you are interested in summer fiber yarn. It is a combination of cotton, linen, and viscose. It has the really great cooling quality of cotton, but it's not as heavy as cotton yarn tends to be due to the linen and viscose, I believe. So, and I know a lot of people complain about knitting with plant fibers, but I love it. I love this yarn so much. Like, I love this project. I love this yarn. I'm really, really excited to have this complete and hopefully soon. But it is not, it's been freezing here still in New York, so I guess I'm in no rush to complete this. What makes me feel rushed is that I knit it once previously and messed up and just want this to be, I don't want to continue knitting on this anymore. But that being said, it's a fabulous knitting experience. I really love lace knitting too. It's just great. Sorry, I had to take a bit of a break there, but I'm back to talk about future plans / acquisitions. Some of these future plans are kind of mini whips, like I've started them, but they're not top priority at the minute. Like this. This on the topic of sandnes garn lina. This is tynn lina. As you can see, it's much thinner. This is the beginnings of a camisole number 7 by my favorite things knitwear, which is a broken rib textured tank top. And this is tynn lina in the colorway green tea, which is a very beautiful pale green color. Like I said, I love summer knitting. I had this yarn. This was actually sent to me by accident because I had ordered this in the matcha color and they sent this instead. That's okay. I'm going to still use this because I like this color too. I was originally going to knit the Knitting for Olive Y top in this yarn, but that pattern is knit bottom up and also in a 2x2 rib. And between this and this, I was just tired of doing 2x2 rib. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I will say that this pattern is not very size inclusive. I'm only knitting it because it was already in my knitting library, and between this and the Y top and a few other patterns in my knitting library, I didn't think it was necessary to buy another pattern on top of it. But if you are interested in knitting something similar from a more size inclusive designer, I believe Rust Knitwear has a similar pattern. I will put information on the screen or in the description box below. I haven't knit any of her patterns, so I can't comment on, like the pattern writing style or whether or not I would actually like recommend this. But if you are interested in knitting something very similar to the camisole number 7 by a smaller designer who is a bit more size inclusive, I would suggest looking into that pattern. But yeah, I don't have much to say about this. It's just, this is the very beginnings of one of the panels. I am a little bit worried. So actually this pattern is knit on 3mm needles. I am knitting it on 2.75mm needles to ensure that it's just like a denser fabric and not super see-through. But I am still a little bit worried about this being see-through. I guess you can't really tell, but like you see there's this hole here. I think if I wear like neutral undergarments, it'll be fine. But yeah, that's just one issue with summer knitting. But yeah, I'm loving this. This is kind of difficult to knit with because it's so thin, and also like on metal needles it's so slippery, but I love this fabric. It's just gorgeous, and I will be prioritizing this project as I'm completing some of my other projects that I just talked about. The next future plan semi-whip is this little rectangle that I've knit. This is the start of a breezy tank by Kiss Rhinestones, and I am knitting it in Lion Brand Trubu in the colorway Thistle, which is like one of my favorite colors. I've talked before about how I love these purpley blues. I have had this yarn since I first started knitting and crocheting, and the thing about these bamboo yarns is that it's really hard to find a design that works with them. I decided to do this pattern for a few different reasons. First of all, I applied to test knit one of Kiss Rhinestones patterns and I didn't get selected, but when but what she does is that she sends out a 50% off discount code for any of her designs to people who didn't get selected. So I bought this pattern and I am knitting it with this yarn. I had this yarn sitting around. Like I said, I bought it at Michael's when I first started knitting and crocheting, and I crocheted this like panel in this like seashell stitch pattern. I was gonna make like a vest type thing out of it, but this is like kind of heavy for what it is, and also I think at this point this would be way too small for me, and I just don't really like it. I think the stitch is beautiful, but I think the stitch will be even better on a yarn that's a lot thinner. So I have a back panel and a front panel here that I'm going to unravel and use for this project. It's just like a very basic tank top, and I believe the pattern is like the breezy long sleeve top and the breezy tank top, so it's kind of like a 2-in-1, and you get the long sleeve pattern as well as the tank top pattern, and I think it's going to be really nice. I think it's super simple DK weight tank top pattern, so I think this yarn, which is super drapey and like very smooth, I think it reminds me of lotion. It's I think it's going to work very well with this pattern. So that is another future plan for me. Now going into acquisitions, I talked about Patons Kroy at the beginning of this video, and I bought more of it because I liked it, and I saw that Wool & Company is now selling it. I am a big fan of what Smiley making on YouTube and Instagram, and she is knitting a pair of socks in this colorway, which is Midnight Orchid. It's a self-striping sock yarn that has these like really beautiful purple and green and cream stripes, and I really liked how it was knitting up for her, so I decided to purchase some of these for myself because I liked Patons Kroy and want to continue using it to knit socks. So I bought these, and while I did that, I also bought this yarn, which is Mojave by Kelbourne Woolens. Amy from Nina's recently posted a video of her reviewing her hand knit t-shirts, and she had knit the Poppy Tee by she had knit the Poppy Tee by Petite knit using the same yarn in like the electric blue color, and she really liked the yarn, she really liked the t-shirt. I liked how it looked on her. I'm really interested in having like a nice neutral cream knitted t-shirt, so I decided to pick this up. I have also always wanted to try Kelbourne Woolens yarn because they're based in Philadelphia, and I was born and raised in the suburbs of Philadelphia, so I thought this would be a nice opportunity to try out this yarn and yarn brands. And yeah, so I plan to knit the Poppy Tee by Petite Knit with this yarn. I really like that t-shirt pattern in general. I think that I have a bit of a gap in my wardrobe with short sleeve shirts. I have a lot of long sleeve shirts and tank tops, but not a lot of short sleeve shirts, so that's something I'm really interested in knitting this summer, and one of them is going to be the Poppy Tee by Petite Knit. So that's all I had to share with you today. Thank you so much for sticking with me and for watching this video. I'm really grateful for all the engagement that I get on my videos, and it's really nice being able to connect with people. Let me know what you've been working on and if there's anything that you're excited to cast on in the upcoming weeks, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye.